Battle of the Giants. How does the RX 7900 XTX and XT stack up against the RTX 4090? Let's take a look at the benchmarks and compare them head on. Spoiler alert, stick till the end of the video and RX 7000 का एक special leak भी है इसमें. So let's get going. So I've got the official FPS numbers AMD की तरफ से. तो Resident Evil Village, COD Modern Warfare 2, Cyberpunk 2077 और Watch Dogs Legion के FPS numbers हैं. This is normal rasterization raw performance on 4K max settings. तो white में Radeon RX 7900 XT and red में Radeon RX 7900 XTX हैं as compared to the yesteryear's 6950 XT. तो आगे देखते हैं रे ट्रेसिंग परफॉर्मेंस ऑफ द RX 7000 सीरीज. अब यार छोटे यूट्यूबर हैं, कोई रिव्यू सैम्पल नहीं, कोई रिव्यू टेस्टिंग नहीं, कुछ नहीं, तो इन्हीं से काम चलाओ. सो ये जो ग्राफ्स हैं, दीज आर द FPS ग्राफ्स फ्रॉम AMD. इसमें ये रे ट्रेसिंग यूज़ कर रहे हैं विद FSR एंड विदाउट FSR एट 4K मैक्स सेटिंग्स. तो अगर हम देखें डार्क ग्रे Radeon RX 6950 XT विद FSR ऑफ, लाइट ग्रे विद FSR ऑन. वाइट में देखें तो RX 7900 XT ग्रे with FSR off and white with FSR on, and RX 7900 XTX in red, bright red with FSR and maroon with FSR off. तो अगर हम देखें तो Resident Evil Village, Dying Light 2, Cyberpunk 2077 और Hitman 3 के FPS numbers यहाँ पे दिए हुए हैं from official sources. अब हम compare करते हैं all of these numbers with the RTX 4090 in raw rasterization as well as with ray tracing, with DLSS, with FSR and without DLSS and FSR. तो देखते हैं how these cards stack up against each other और RX 7900 XT and XTX कितनी performance रखते हैं. So let's take a look at the comparison now. So सबसे पहला comparison जो है वो है Watch Dogs Legion का average FPS raw rasterization test का. तो RTX 4090 is 1.4 times better than the RX 7900 XTX in raw numbers. तो 140% ज़्यादा performance है RTX 4090 की, and RTX 4090 is 165% या 1.65 times that of the RX 7900 XT in terms of raw numbers, raw rasterization. Whereas when we compare the RX 7000 with the RTX 3090 Ti, तो RX 7900 XTX has surpassed the RTX 3090 Ti by a small margin. तो RTX 3090 Ti is slower than the RX 7900 XTX by around 14 to 15%, and RTX 3090 Ti and the RX 7900 XT are neck to neck in Watch Dogs Legion. Moving on, जो next game हम compare करेंगे वो है Cyberpunk 2077 raw rasterization as well as ray tracing performance. तो चलो वो देखते हैं. Cyberpunk 2077 में 4K max settings with ray tracing with DLSS and FSR on and off. अब देखते हैं तो average FPS raw rasterization figures are RTX 4090 is 115% better than the RX 7900 XTX in raw numbers. तो 1.15 times ज़्यादा performance है RTX 4090 की, and it has 1.38 times more performance than the RX 7900 XT. मतलब 138% better है 7900 XT से in raw rasterization. But अगर हम बात करें RTX 3090 Ti की, तो RX 7900 XTX and XT they both have surpassed the RTX 3090 Ti with some margin. तो 3090 Ti is slower than the RX 7900 XTX by around 30 to 31%, and RX 7900 XT say it is slower by around 9 to 10%. So that's great. So जो RX 7000 series आई है, it has definitely overtaken the RTX 3090 Ti. आगे देखते हैं how this competition unfolds. Ray tracing 4K with FSR and DLSS on, तो RTX 4090 is 1.27 times better than the RX 7900 XTX. तो 127% better है with ray tracing enabled with FSR and DLSS, and 4090 is 1.38 times the performance of RX 7900 XT, मतलब 138% of RX 7900 XT. Raw ray tracing देखें without DLSS and FSR, तो जो RTX 4090 है it is 2.14 times, मतलब 214% the performance given by the RX 7900 XTX with RT enabled without FSR and DLSS, and it is 2.5 times better than the RX 7900 XT, मतलब 250%. RX 7900 XT पे तो it is unplayable if we have just ray tracing enabled without FSR. Raw performance में, pixel pushing में, RTX 4090 is better than the RX 7900 XT and XTX. अगर इन दोनों कार्ड्स का कंपैरिजन RTX 3090 Ti से करें तो these two cards from AMD they've surpassed the RTX 3090 Ti with some margin in ray tracing with DLSS and FSR. So 3090 Ti is slower than the 7900 XTX by around 34%, and it is slower than the RX 7900 XT by around 23%. So that's great. I mean, raw numbers as well as ray tracing with DLSS and FSR में these cards are better than the previous generation of the RTX 30 series cards. अगर हम देखें 3090 Ti का comparison करें with RT enabled without DLSS and FSR, तो RTX 3090 Ti is faster than the RX 7900 XTX by around 16%, and it is also faster than the 7900 XT by around 38%. So चलो देखते हैं आगे. Let's move on to our next title, which is Dying Light 2. Dying Light 2 के benchmarks अगर हम देखें with ray tracing at 4K with FSR and DLSS on, तो RTX 4090 is 1.4 times, मतलब 140% the performance of RX 7900 XTX with RT enabled with FSR and DLSS. RTX 4090 is also 1.57 times or 157% better than the 7900 XT. Raw ray tracing without DLSS and FSR अगर हम देखें तो RTX 4090 is 2.41 times or 241% the performance of the 7900 XTX variant, and 2.76 times better or more performance than the 7900 XT. मूविंग ऑन, अगर इन दोनों कार्ड्स का कंपैरिजन 3090 Ti से करें तो 7900 XTX and XT they have both surpassed the 3090 Ti with some margin in ray tracing with DLSS and FSR. तो RTX 3090 Ti जो है that is slower than the XTX version by around 50%, and 3090 Ti is also slower than the RX 7900 XT by around 33%. और अगर हम DLSS और FSR को ऑफ कर दें and we are talking about ray tracing and compare 3090 Ti with the 7900 XTX and XT, then they're both behind the RTX 3090 Ti with a bit of margin. So 3090 Ti is faster than the XTX by around 12%, and it is also faster than the 7900 XT by around 28%. So yes, Dying Light 2 में these were the benchmarks and these were the comparisons that I was talking about. तो more or less अगर हम देखें तो RX 7000 series it promises a lot of value for money, because अगर 4090 से हम कंपेयर करें तो 4090 का लॉन्च प्राइस है $1600, ठीक है, एंड RX 7000 7900 XTX का जो लॉन्च प्राइस है दैट इज ओनली $1000, ठीक है, तो $600 का तो यही फर्क पड़ गया. डेफिनेटली RX 7000 का वैल्यू फॉर मनी प्रोपोजिशन ज़्यादा है, बट एनी हाउ आई विल नॉट गेट इन टू दैट. आई डोंट वांट टू पुट वर्ड्स इन योर माउथ. अपने कमेंट्स अपने थॉट्स ज़रूर बताना मेरे को कमेंट सेक्शन में, लेट मी नो. एंड जो मैं बात कर रहा था शुरू में, वीडियो के शुरू में जो लीक की मैं बात कर रहा था अबाउट द RX 7000 सीरीज, तो RX 7900 सीरीज में भी मल्टीपल SKUs आ रहे हैं, मल्टीपल पार्ट्स आएंगे. उसमें है RX 7990 XTX which will be the top of the line 3.3 GHz से 3.6 GHz का गेमिंग क्लॉक रहेगा एंड 96 कंप्यूट यूनिट्स, 24 GB का VRAM रहेगा एंड 384 बिट का बस रहेगा. That is the rumor around this, but the biggest part is that it will have around 192 megabytes of infinity cache which will employ 3D V cache. तो अगर ऐसा इम्प्लीमेंट होता है तो भाई ये ताबड़तोड़ परफॉर्मेंस देगा एंड इट्स गोइंग टू बी अ ब्लॉकबस्टर इन माय ओपिनियन. बिकॉज अगर हम देखें 5800X 3D जो है, इनका जो Ryzen प्रोसेसर है 5800X 3D, दैट इज स्टिल बीटिंग द शिट आउट ऑफ द कॉम्पिटिशन. राइट, जो नेक्स्ट क्यू है वो होगा 7950 XTX. दैट वुड more or less have the same CU count and the VRAM and bus width or memory speed as compared with the previous card. तो 7990 XTX the major difference would be जो boost clock है, जो clock है, clock frequency will be from 3 to 3.3 GHz, ठीक है, and 96 megabyte का infinity cache होगा and it will not employ the 3dB cache. जो तीसरा SKU है that is the RX 7950 XT, ठीक है, identical to the 7900 XT but with increased clock speeds, ठीक है. तो 7950 XT जो होगा it will have 84 compute units, 20 GB of VRAM, 320 बिट की मेमोरी बस होगी and 80 megabytes का infinity cache होगा and clock speeds could lie between 2.6 to 2.7 GHz and maybe till 3 GHz. तो ये तीनों SKUs भी they are in the talks and this is a leak. You saw it here first on Chipsets and Frames. और ऐसी न्यूज़, benchmarks, comparisons and leaks के लिए do subscribe and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.